Here are your notes for lesson 2.4. Please make sure that your table of contents is up to date. And today we are going to be working with multiplying rational numbers. We will practice multiplying fractions, mixed numbers, and decimals. Again, this should be review, multiplying fractions, mixed numbers, and decimals. The only thing new this year is knowing your integer rules with these concepts. Repeated addition is the same as multiplying. In the first example, you will see repeated addition of 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 is equal to 3/4. A simpler way of writing that is to multiply 3 times 1/4. Now notice, when you multiply a fraction by a whole number, it is the same as multiplying the whole number by just the numerator of the fraction and keeping the same denominator. Please remember that all whole numbers written in fraction form is that number over 1. Let's go ahead and try. Before we try, here's just a little review of our rules for multiplying two rational numbers. If the signs of the factors are the same, then your product is positive. If the signs of the factors are different, the product is negative. This is not new. I taught you back in chapter 1 our smiley faces. Signs are the same, we're positive or happy. Signs are the same with two negatives. The answer is positive, or the smiley face is happy. And when the signs are different, we are unhappy, or a negative answer. Now let's do some math. Our first problem that we are going to do, let me move this over so you can see it, is negative 8 times 6/7. Remember that negative 8 can be written in the form of a fraction of negative 8 over 1 times 6/7. Multiply your numerators. 8 times 6 is 48. 1 times 7 is 7. Now notice, I have one negative number, I have one positive number, so this fraction is negative. At this point in time, let's go ahead and write that as a mixed number. Negative what? Remember our song that I taught you in class, I-O, it's off to math you go, the top goes in and the bottom goes out. Negative 48 divided by 7. Well, 7 will divide evenly into 48. How many times? 6 times. We're left with 7 times 6, which is 42. 48 minus 42 would give us 6, and our denominator would stay as 7. So negative 48/7, and if we write it as a mixed number, it's negative 6 6/7. Let's go ahead and work on our second problem. Here you will notice I have the whole number of 2. I'm going to go ahead and write that as 2 over 1. But now I am multiplying that times 5 1/3. I cannot leave 5 1/3 in the form that it is in. We must change this to an improper fraction. And remember, 5 1/3, you start at the bottom and you multiply, making your way up. 3 times 5 is 15, and then add 1. Whoops, let's make that an addition sign. Having a hard time with my pen, sorry. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 plus 1 is 16 over 3. And now we're ready to multiply. 2 times 16 is 32. 1 times 3 is 3. And if we go ahead and change that into a mixed number, 32 divided by 3, we would get 10 and 2/3. Let's go ahead and continue on. I have 1/8 times 6/7. Now we want to make sure that we write our answer in simplest form. Whoops, let's erase that. You can do something that I'm hoping you learned last year in 6th grade, which is cross-canceling. Cross-canceling is finding a common factor with any number that's in the numerator with any number that's in the denominator. So here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at the 1 and the 7. There is not a common factor other than 1 for both 1 and 7. So those numbers are going to stay the same. But if I look at 6 and 8, what numbers divide evenly into both 6 and 8? Well, the number 2 will divide into both. 6 divided by 2 gives me 3, and 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4. Now, we can go ahead and multiply. 1 times 3 is 3, and 4 times 7 is 28. 3/28 is our answer in simplest form. In our next question, we're going to go ahead and cross-cancel again. But before we do that, determine if this answer is going to be a positive number or if this number is going to be a negative number. In this case, I'm multiplying one negative times a positive, so that answer is going to be negative. And now I'll go ahead and cancel. 2's, 2 goes into 2 one time. And 3 and 9. A common factor for 3 and 9 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Now let's go ahead and multiply. Multiply our numerator. 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 1 is 1. And when you divide -3 by +1, your answer in simplest form is -3. So we've just reviewed multiplying fractions. Now let's review multiplying decimals. The number one mistake that I see students doing whenever we multiply decimals is they try to line up the decimal point. You do not line up decimal points when you multiply decimals. If that is something that you were told in your previous math classes, forget about it. We do not line up decimals. Let's go ahead and write our numbers. 3 1/10 times 28/100. Right now, you're going to multiply these numbers as if they were whole numbers. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. I'm done with the 8. I like to draw an X through it when I'm done, and when I see an X, I know I need to put a 0 underneath. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. And now it's time for us to go ahead and add. 8 plus 0 is 8. 4 plus 2 is 6. And 6 plus 2 is 8. Now it's time to place our decimal point. How many digits come after the decimal point in 3 1/10? There is only one number that comes after the decimal point. How many numbers come after the decimal point in our second number of 28/100? There are 2 numbers. 1 plus 2 makes 3, and that tells me how many places From the right, I need to move my decimal. So starting at the right, 1, 2, 3, and now I can go ahead and place my decimal point in, and our final answer is 868 thousandths. Looking at our next example, again, before we start, let's look and determine if our answer is going to be positive or if our answer is going to be negative. We have a negative times a negative, which will make a positive. Let's go ahead and set up our multiplication problem. What we can do, because we have more digits in -3 and 75 hundredths, I'm going to start with that as my first number. Remember, commutative property. You can multiply these numbers in any order. And now I'm going to multiply by 4/10. We already determined the answer was positive because we have a negative times a negative, so the answer is going to be positive. 5 times 4 is 20. 7 times 4 is 28 plus 2 is 30. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15. And again, now let's figure out where our decimal place is going to be placed. I have 2 digits. I have 1 digit. Add those up. That's moving it 3 places. From the right, 1, 2, 3. Place your decimal point in. Final answer, 1.5. The last thing we will look at, Joy completed 1/20th of her painting each day. Of. Hopefully you remember back from chapter 1 that the word of means to multiply. 1/20th. Of means multiply. Her painting each day. How much of her painting does she complete in a 7-day week? 1/20th times 7, because she does 1/20th of the painting every single day, is going to give us 7/20ths. Again, you can use repeated addition if you want. You can have 1/20th plus 1/20th 7 times. It's easier just to multiply. That concludes our lesson. Here's 3 questions I'd like you to practice at this time. Make sure you come to class tomorrow with any questions that you might have. Have a good night.